Hi, welcome to another episode of TV and Film Focus. I'm here today. My name is Victoria Main. I'm here with Keith Hopkins, who is a local writer and director, and we're going to talk about his most recent project and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, thanks for being here, Keith.
It's awesome to be here, Vicky. Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. So let's start with let's start with you.
Sure.
Where are you from? How long have you been a filmmaker? Let's kind of talk about some of that stuff.
Yeah. So I come from New York. So I'm a long way from home, being here in Duluth. And I've been working in TV since 2005-ish, doing a whole lot of different things: news, promotion, marketing, commercials, working at a public access center. A lot like this here. Came to Duluth in 2014 with my wife. We kind of moved to Minnesota on a whim. And it's worked out great. So then, while having worked in TV all those years, I was also working on independent films whenever I could. And I would do anything. I'd PA, I would set up lights, background extra, just kind of like whatever I could to just be on set and gain experience. And then when I got here, got a job at KBJR 6 downtown.
Okay.
And met a lot of great people with tons of great experience. And I felt like it was finally my time to start directing shorts.
Okay.
So it was around 2014, 2015. I endeavored to make my first paranormal short film, which was called Boots. Played locally at festivals, Duluth Spirit Film Festival and around Wisconsin and stuff like that. And have just been plugging away on paranormal short films ever since.
So it sounds like that's a pretty strong interest area for you.
Yeah. I mean, I love ghost stories. I've always been into horror films. I'm not really into making anything bloody or disgusting or really like that. I focus on creepy things and spooky things, slow burn stories. And it really all comes from my dad. My dad was a great storyteller. So we'd always go camping as kids. And whenever we got the campfire started at night, he'd always be spinning yarns and
telling ghost stories?
Yeah, telling ghost stories. And after, years later, I'd read Stephen King's short story collections, and I'd be like, oh, this is one of my dad's stories. so he got them from wherever he could, and he'd adapt them and make them his own. So it was great. So I got my love of the paranormal from him.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your company, Hexagon Motion Pictures.
Yeah.
And your first, your largest, I think, project to date, which is Gravedigger Dave's Halfway House.
Yes. So Gravedigger Dave's Halfway House, that's the anthology film I'm working on currently about Minnesota Paranormal. Hexagon Motion Pictures, it's really my banner to kind of tie all my projects together. Because, as I started making paranormal shorts, I knew at some point I'm going to want to tie everything together into a feature. I didn't know what that feature would look like. I didn't know what the concept was. I didn't know what the title was. But I was like, if I can start gaining people's interest in my projects now under a company banner, then, I can bring those people along with me and share what I'm making no matter what I end up calling my movie. So I started Hexagon Motion Pictures in about 2014 as well. So, from 4 years before I even had the Gravedigger Dave concept.
Okay. So when you talk about an anthology film, can you just clarify for folks what you're meaning by that?
Yeah, and I should always lead with that, because I often find that I just say, oh yeah, I'm making an anthology film. Oh, cool. What's that? So an anthology film, as I define it, is a feature-length film that's comprised of several different short stories. Oftentimes there's a wraparound sequence that kind of ties everything together and kind of gives everything what would hopefully be a smooth narrative through line. And then you see even more of these kinds of this type of storytelling on television, probably most famously with Twilight Zone or Black Mirror more recently, in which each episode has a different set of characters, a different location, a different storyline, but each story is tied together either through a narrator or through some thematic similarity. So that's generally how I define anthology film and anthology TV.
Okay, so in the case of Gravedigger Dave's Halfway House, your narrator essentially is Gravedigger Dave, correct?
Yes, correct.
So he's sort of the tie-in for all the different stories.
Yeah, he's the glue. He holds the movie together. So the premise is Gravedigger Dave has some stories to tell. Some of them are true and some of them are false. And he challenges the audience to really make it up for themselves, what they believe and what they don't believe. And there's a climax at the end where it's kind of revealed which stories were true and which were false. But the whole idea of the film was to kind of make it sort of a puzzle for the audience. They have to put the pieces together on their own. So a lot of the stories are from this region. We went to up north in the Ely Steakhouse, up to Hibbing in one of the cemeteries, and the Greyhound Bus Museum where there's a lot of activity. Locally, of course, we talk about Nopaming, the William A. Irvin, North Shore, the Duluth Depot. There's some locations that remain undisclosed because the people didn't want us revealing what locations are haunted.
Sure.
But there's still some really creepy stories to tell. So
Really creepy stuff.
yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny because we have another show that we produce here at PACT, which is a paranormal series. So,
Oh yeah, I've seen that before actually.
yeah, so it's kind of funny the crossover there.
Yeah.
So you went all over that. How long did it take you to shoot this thing?
The majority of the movie was shot so now as we're recording this, it's December 2019, and I guess I really got started in March of 2019. There's some stuff that's in the movie, some of the short films that you're going to see in there that I had shot before even having the concept for Gravedigger Dave, but really, 85-90% of the movie was shot in 2019.
Okay, so you were shooting that, all around the area. Let's talk a little bit about the kind of the practical production aspects of it.
Sure.
How did you find your crew? How did you fund your film? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I guess we could start with crew because I started crewing before I even got funding. So in the movie, there's a mix of style. There's narrative, which is, two characters going through a script together. And then there's documentary. So it's kind of a hybrid in its style. Crew-wise, narrative filmmaking requires a lot more than documentary. So,
Sure.
With the narrative segments, I had, a director of photography, lighting people, some people to help with background footage, audio, what you picture of like a small independent film crew. I had everybody. So, these films would be crewed with 8 people or so.
So, and these are local folks?
Oh yeah, they're all local.
Okay.
A lot of the people are people that I either work with or met from KBJR6. And then the documentary ones, I was able to do more of a skeleton crew, where oftentimes it would just be me and talent, or me with kind of like a small group of people who knew about the area that we were shooting at and can kind of direct me you want to get some shots of this thing, you want to go to this spot. And I really enjoy the skeleton crew kind of style of shooting where it's just like me and a camera and a couple other people, because then I can really kind of get into the zone and really enjoy what I'm doing. It's the narrative segments that, you have to remain very, I don't know what the word is. I don't know, I guess right brain versus left brain.
Yeah,
when you're shooting with a lot of people.
Sure.
Because you got to manage everything and make sure the wheels keep on turning.
Right. So you actually shot segments of this yourself?
Yeah, I shot a lot of it myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you consider yourself a shooter then?
Yeah. I guess, if I was working on a big budget Hollywood production, I'd rather direct than be a director of photography, or AKA cinematographer. Because it's really working with the script and the actors. That's my passion. But, with a low budget film like this where you can't necessarily pay people, it's hard to say to somebody hey, we're going up to Ely, we're going to shoot this steakhouse and it's going to take up your whole day,
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to just me as the filmmaker, the one who wants to get this done, grab my camera and just go out there and shoot.
Yeah. Now, did you write the script yourself?
Yes. Yep, I wrote it. So a lot of the vast majority of the film is documentary, so that doesn't really require any writing at all. It's mostly interviews with a bit of narration here and there. But I wrote the narration, and then the narrative segments I also wrote.
Okay, and I mean, how long did you work on it?
That's hard to answer because the way I made this movie, it's not like I wrote a script and then started shooting. Mm-hmm. Like I'd shoot a little thing and be like, oh well, that thing I shot could kind of work with this other thing I shot a while back. But I need to have some kind of joining segment to bring them together. So let me write a little piece here. And then I'd shoot it with my Gravedigger Dave actor, who is Matt Rasmussen. So I'd get Matt over to the house, and we'd shoot in my garage. And then I'd let that sit for a while, and I'd kind of cook up an idea for another little segment and invite him back, and we'd shoot another little thing. So I was kind of in pre-production, production, and post-production all at the same time for the whole movie.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
So theoretically, since theoretically the Gravedigger Dave anthology series could go on. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of other ghost stories to tell in Minnesota. Even northern Minnesota, there's a lot of stuff I would like to get to. As I've been posting more and more on Facebook, I have people commenting like, oh, you got to go to this house, you got to go to that house. And, I'm kind of at the point where it's like, I've shot enough to get the one feature film done. And anything else that kind of comes my way, I'm starting to keep in the back of my head, like, maybe I could do another. You know?
Yeah.
There's certainly enough spooky stories around here to keep
Oh,
on
definitely.
Going. Yeah.
I should connect you with our other guys that, they're part of the Paranormal show, and, that would be kind of funny to see.
It would, and I've watched that show before. One of my buddies sent it to me, months ago. So I've checked out several episodes, and it's good to, hear what you guys have to say. And there are some ghost hunters in the movie. There's Duluth Paranormal Society, and then up in Hibbing, there's a guy by the name of Adam Norrie who's written a book about ghost hunting. So there's some ghost hunters in it, and I felt like, I kind of reached my cap on interviewing ghost hunters for this one. And that's the thing. It's like I keep on learning of more and more ghost hunters. Yeah. And I think, there's room for more of this in the Gravedigger Dave kind of way. So, yeah, I could do a second one. We'll see.
For sure. Okay, well, let's talk for a second about, what it was like. You said you came here in, 2014?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How have you found this arts community to be in terms of, the art and film community? How have folks been about being supportive and, helping you out? And how's that been going for you?
I mean, amazing. And, it was partially because of the community that I thought to myself, I could start directing shorts, Because, I wasn't really, I had done a documentary short when I lived in Massachusetts, and it was not the best thing ever. I wasn't really fully developed as a filmmaker yet. But when I got here, at KBGR 6, I started learning tons of stuff from everybody, and then I started meeting people at Duluth Superior Film Festival. And around that time, the Duluth Film Collective was very active, so I joined that. So I started meeting all these different people who were working on different things, and I was like, yeah, one, I feel like I'm ready in my career where I could start directing, and two, there's all these other people around who want to work on stuff. So it was really, the fact that I started making shorts when I moved to Duluth is not by accident. It was kind of because Duluth is the way it is that I started doing it.
Well, that's, congratulations to Duluth. I mean, that's, ultimately that's the best thing. We want to be in a place, creative people want to be in a place that makes them want to create,
Right.
And I think Duluth is doing that. Hasn't been doing it for a long time, but now people are starting to sort of take some notice, and with Catalyst coming in and all these different, and the Filmmakers Association. I mean, it's really starting to grow.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about you. Okay, you've got your company, and you also started working on a book.
Yeah.
About anthology filmmaking relating to horror. So let's talk a little bit, and that's also under the Hexagon banner.
Yeah, it is. Yep. And this also kind of goes back to your question about funding, which I never got to earlier. So I wrote a state arts board grant, Minnesota State Arts Board grant. But the process of applying for the grant and then finding out whether or not you got the grant it's about a 6-month gap. So I was like, well, I don't want to not work on my project while I wait to see if I get the funding. So I'm like, well, let me start reading up about anthology filmmaking, because I love books about filmmaking. And I had never seen a book about anthology movies before. So I went on Amazon, and I'm just looking and looking and looking. And then I went on Goodreads, which is a great place to find books, and I couldn't find anything. So I was kind of like, well, if there's no book on this subject, maybe I could write it. So what I did is I started analyzing anthology films, going back to the silent film era, all the way up to today. And a lot of the really good ones, it seems like, were made in the 60s and 70s. Like, there's movies like Asylum, Vault of Horror, Tales from the Crypt, all these British movies that are just amazing and have great actors like Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing in them. So I started watching all these movies and kind of analyzing them and taking notes. And then after that, somebody suggested I start reaching out to filmmakers. And at first it seemed kind of intimidating, but then I just started, find someone's email address and shoot them an email and say, hey, like, would you talk to me on the phone about how you made your movie? And I was kind of blown away by like who was saying yes. So I talked to the editor of Trick or Treat, which is a great anthology film, I think from 2007 or 8. I spoke to an editor from the TV series Black Mirror, a director who did a whole bunch of episodes of Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark? And just the list goes on. So a lot of really, really, really smart people who were able to share their techniques and one, give me ideas on how to craft my anthology film, but then also two, to give me material to ultimately create a book about how to make an anthology movie. So,
Wow.
So yeah, so I worked on that really intensely for about 6 months, and then luckily I got the grant. And work on the book has kind of stopped since I got the grant because I'm like, well, now I got to focus on the movie. The movie will be released March 1st. And at that point, I'm just going to call it done. I'm not going to go back to it and tinker with it because, you can tinker with something forever.
Yes.
So the movie will be done March 1st. And then from there, I'm going to go back to the book. And I think I can probably finish that by fall of 2020. So by then, I'll have an anthology movie, a book about anthology movies to just put out into the world.
There you go.
So.
Okay, so you've got Hexagon Motion Pictures now. You've established yourself in Duluth, and you're gonna have your premiere here.
Yep.
So when you look down the road for Hexagon Motion Pictures and Keith Hopkins, what are you working on?
As we were just talking about, I've been kicking around ideas for a Gravedigger Dave sequel. And that would be super cool. I wouldn't want to fund it with a grant again. I feel like there are other avenues I want to explore, like perhaps crowdfunding or maybe seeking investors, just to kind of get my feet into a different area and try new things. I feel like structurally I'd also have to make the film sort of different, but that's an idea I've been kicking around. I've got another script, a feature film script called Red Betty and the Murder Farm, which is more of a kind of like a slasher type action movie. So I've been thinking about dusting that off and rewriting it and maybe sending it out to production companies to see if somebody else wanted to direct it.
Mm-hmm.
And then possibly writing another book about filmmaking. I had another idea for a book. The general concept would be short film to feature film, because there are a lot of movies out there that started out as short films and then became feature films. So I was thinking, what if I reached out to filmmakers who had made a short and then been able to turn it into a feature? One is District 9, which is a great Neil Blomkamp movie. Also, I believe George Lucas's first movie, THX 1138, I think that was a short film that became a feature. So there's a lot out there. So yeah, just things that kind of poking around in the back of my head for now.
So it sounds like maybe you have an interest too in short films. It's kind of an interesting idea that you could make a series of short films and then find a way to put them all together, find a mechanism, a structural mechanism to put them all together to make a feature out of them. That's kind of an interesting...
Well, it was kind of, when I thought about it way back in 2014, I was like, this could be the path towards me actually getting a feature done. Because it's really hard to, say like I'm going to take 2 or 3 weeks away from my job and gather a crew and not be able to pay anybody, but still have to find out how to feed them and shoot a feature the traditional way.
Yeah.
It's hard without money to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
But if I can just shoot, take 4 hours tonight and shoot a 2-minute long short film, and be like, well, that wasn't that hard, and I was able to make it halfway decent. What if I could make a whole lot more of these, and eventually have a feature film? So it just seemed a way to do it that was, I don't know, more plausible. I'm like, I could actually get it done if I do it this way.
Yeah, so. No, I can definitely see the appeal of it myself, because you're right. When if you're doing a feature, then there's just a whole lot of time and a whole lot of commitment from people, and if you're not paying folks, it gets very difficult to get in. I've had this experience myself. It gets really hard to keep people engaged for several weeks or a couple of months or whatever that it's going to take you to shoot. And
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea to shoot in smaller segments, and then weave it together.
You know, it worked for me. And I know there are other people in town who are doing features in other ways, you know, that are going great. But this was just the way where I was like, this is the way that's going to work for me. You know, it's like I'm married, I work full time, I've got a 2-year-old daughter. So it's like time is precious.
Yep.
And I'm like, if I can find a way to chip away at it in small chunks, you know, and not like cut too much into the time that I want to spend at home and the time I need to spend at work, you know, this is a way that I can feasibly do it. So.
Well, yeah, you know, and as creative people, we're always kind of doing that dance between, you know, our obligations for work and for family and all the, you know, all those things, and trying to find time to do what we want to do on, you know.
Right.
And especially if it's not, you know, if it's not something that's generating income for you, you know, you got to be creative.
Yep.
To be creative, I guess, is kind of the bottom line.
Yep.
But I think that's a great idea, and it sort of makes me, you know, like maybe have you thought about at some point doing, like for instance, episodic television, or like a web series, which you know can be of a variety of lengths, and you can kind of shoot it as you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have, you know, and I've always loved like unsolved mysteries, you know, and shows like that. Where, you know, you've got a host. In my case, it would be Gravedigger Dave, and the host kind of leads you to 2 or 3 different stories. You know, I'm definitely more into the paranormal than I am into true crime, but I was like, you know, maybe Gravedigger Dave could be a series like that, just like tossing to these different segments, and we do, you know, an episode a week or something. Like that would be super cool.
Yeah.
You know, it would certainly take a lot to kind of keep that train rolling. But yeah, it's certainly something I've thought about.
Yeah. Well, it you know, kind of lends itself in that direction and gives you some flexibility. So what else looking down the road? What else do you think is on the horizon for Hexagon? I mean, are you looking to continue to make features?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think now that I've, you know, built up enough shorts and short content to make a feature out of it, I think the idea for the next project is to go right into the next feature, rather than release a short, do a film festival thing, you know, do another short, do a film festival thing. I think the idea is going to be next time to hopefully get the next feature done in a much more condensed timetable than this one, and save the whole thing for a premiere instead of like kind of release little bits here and there. You know, and I've thought about different ways to do that. Because, you know, for the next one, I don't necessarily have to direct each short. And I thought, what if I put it out to the local community or to the world? Like, hey, you know, short films about paranormal stories wanted, you know, and maybe we get just a much wider variety and probably a much wider skill level than you know, just me. Could make for an interesting project.
That is interesting, yeah.
Yeah, these are just things I'm kicking around.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think in this phase for me, for Gravedigger Dave's Halfway House, you know, I'm not really in the home stretch yet. I've got about 3 months to edit. So 3 months from now, if you talk to me, I might say, like, I'm exhausted. I can't even think about another movie.
I don't
like,
want to ever make a movie again. Yeah.
Talk to me in 5 years,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But now I've still got that momentum. So yeah, sequels are definitely on my mind.
Well, are you feeling like once Gravedigger Dave is put together and after you have your premiere here or whatever, are you kind of looking at the festival circuit for that?
You know, I don't really know, because festivals, you know, they're expensive, you know, especially the top tier, middle tier ones. And then there's a lot of travel involved. So it's like, I don't have the money and I don't have the time. But, you know, I'd really like to submit to distributors, you know, and see if I can get any traction that way. And if not, you know, I'm going to put it up on Amazon Prime and Vimeo rentals, maybe do some more local theatrical screenings and just let the movie exist in the world. You know,
Sure.
if no distributors bite, you know, it's like, I know what kind of movie I have. I don't have a Sundance movie, you know?
Right,
You know,
right.
I've got a fun ghost story romp, you know, and so I'm not really even considering that route right now, the whole Sundance route.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. I've only seen the trailer.
Yeah.
But it does look like a lot of fun. It's kind of it looks fun and scary.
Well,
so.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope it seems like the trailer has generated more interest than I expected. And that's really great. So, you know, in the coming weeks, I'm going to be releasing a poster, maybe some little clips, maybe some behind-the-scenes pictures, just to kind of try and keep some momentum going.
Sure.
Until the release on March 1st.
Well, and now is this stuff, are you gonna make this stuff available on your website or on your Facebook page? Where will this?
I'd say Facebook has kind of been our first like launch pad, I guess you'd say, for all the marketing stuff. Everything also goes onto the website, which is hexagonmotionpictures.com. And those are really the two spots, but it's Facebook primarily. Oh, and then YouTube also. The trailer's on YouTube, and you know, it's gotten like 300 or so views. I haven't really pushed it at all, though. I've just kind of let that sit there because it's more convenient to embed a YouTube video than a Facebook video. But the emphasis has really been on Facebook so far. So, and it's been kind of overwhelming at times, like how much feedback and people reaching out and stuff. It's wonderful.
Cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Arrowhead Filmmakers group. So is that something are you actively? Because I'm involved off and on.
Sure. I've heard of them. And, you know, there are some members that I know really well, and they're always trying to get me to go to meetings, and I've never been to one, which is, like, horrible that I've never been to one. But, yeah, and a lot of it has to do with my work schedule. You know, I work at nights, and they meet at nights. So, yeah, I'm sure some of them are watching. I'm going to try to get out, I promise.
Yeah, he's going to come to a meeting.
I've got to come to one of these meetings, yeah.
And I go to them occasionally myself just to check in, and I'm in contact with, a lot of those folks have been guests on this show.
Right.
And so I keep up with what they're doing. Right. And we switch out some of the videos on our homepage.
Sure.
On our website for PACT. So, but yeah, I think it's a great group, and it's just another way for, to meet the other folks that are doing what you're doing. Right. In a variety of ways. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's important for us all to stay connected as filmmakers.
Yep.
You know, and I know a lot of them in town. I know there are some that I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's a crime. You know, I should know everybody.
Yeah.
Who's making movies around here.
Well, you'll get to know them all, I'm sure.
I know. And especially, if I'm going to get everyone together to make another anthology film.
That's right.
I got to start meeting people.
All right. Well, I think we're about out of time. So, Keith, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
And I'll keep an eye on what's happening with Gravedigger Dave and the Gravedigger Dave's halfway house.
Yep.
There we go. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.